Hello and welcome to your monthly Plated Up Kentucky Proud recipe segment. My name is Kelly Burgess, your Family Consumer Sciences Extension Agent with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service in Allen County. And today we'll be making my very favorite Plated Up Kentucky Proud recipe called Farmer's Market Skillet Bake. So as you can see in front of me, it contains everything delicious. But before I talk too much, I'm going to go ahead and get started with a few things in our skillet. We already have this skillet heated to a medium-high heat. And we're going to be adding 4 to 5 sliced very thinly, about 1/4 inch thick, red potatoes. These are the baby, kind of new red potatoes. You can use the full-sized ones. This was just what I was able to find at the grocery store today. We have half of a chopped onion, so we'll add those in as well. And then 1 clove of garlic. Actually, the full recipe is 2 cloves of garlic, so not to confuse you on our half versus full recipe, but that's 2 cloves of garlic. And then we're gonna add this in with a tablespoon of olive oil. So we'll go ahead and put that over. And we just wanna stir this so that it coats all of our vegetables. Alrighty, so after this has been cooking for just a couple of minutes, it won't take long, especially based on how thick or how thin you slice your potatoes. The recipe recommends 1/4 inch. That way it won't take very long at all, but you can see that they're already softening up. Our onions are becoming translucent, and that's really what we want. So this is cooking quite quickly, so I'm gonna go ahead and reduce my heat down just a little bit. Let those continue to cook while we mix up the rest of our recipe. And we are going to go ahead and add in a little bit of everybody's favorite ingredient, which is cheese. This is a low-fat mozzarella cheese, 1/2 cup. If you were making the full recipe, you would go ahead and put 1 cup of mozzarella cheese. Alrighty, and we'll just make sure that's spread evenly. And we're not really going to stir this anymore. We're just going to let that sit and kind of melt in our skillet as we continue on. So moving on to the rest of our ingredients, this recipe has all kinds of colorful ingredients as well. So we have sliced zucchini. The recipe calls for 1 full zucchini. So we've gone ahead and sliced this up. It also calls for 1 yellow summer squash. Now, if you only have one or the other, you don't have to have both. The flavor and the function it has in the recipe is very similar. So if you only have one, that's okay. It just is kind of colorful and pretty if you have both. And then 4 sliced tomatoes. I like to leave them in big slices because you'll see after we mix it together, this will create a beautiful top for our recipe. And I'll just go ahead and mention too, you can already see the cheese is melting in our skillet, creating that nice base layer for our dish. Okay, now that we have our veggies mixed together in the bowl, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and then our recipe calls for 5 basil leaves that are fresh. I was not able to find fresh basil today as it's not quite in season yet, so I've chosen to use dried basil. So I did 1/2 teaspoon of that as well, so you can kind of adjust that basil to taste based on if you have fresh or dried. So we're simply going to just stir these ingredients together a little bit in our bowl. And this is going to be the next layer on top of the potatoes in our recipe. One of the reasons why I like this recipe, I kind of mentioned already a little bit, is that it's just so pretty. Having all of the different colors of vegetables layered up in that cast iron skillet, it just, even if you're a picky eater, you can't help but admit that it looks delicious and makes anybody want to try some new veggies. So this is also a very affordable recipe. Most of the time in the summer, those summer squash and zucchinis are either very cheap to find at your local farmer's market or grocery store, or you might even have them growing in your home garden coming up in the next few months. So keep that in mind as you plan out your timeline to make this dish. So after we've mixed these together, I have washed my hands. We're gonna just go ahead and layer these all on top of our potatoes. What I like to do is I like to put most of the zucchini and summer squash in first and keep the tomatoes for on top. but you can mix them together if you want. This is just kind of the look that I prefer. So I'm gonna go ahead and layer all of the squash in first, as much as I can. And what we'll be doing, the reason I'm using a cast iron skillet today is because we'll end up putting this in our oven, which is already preheated to 375 degrees. So you want to make sure before you start out that you're using a skillet that is safe to put in your oven. So my cast iron skillet is my favorite skillet to put in the oven just because it's so versatile. It holds the heat well. It does great on the stovetop and in the oven. So that's why I've chosen to use this one today. But if you have another oven-safe skillet that you prefer, you're more than welcome to use that as well. And then finally, we'll add our tomato slices on top. You can see all that nice basil on there. Looks delicious. There's another zucchini that I missed. And it just, you can hear the sizzle in there. If that tells you anything about how it's gonna taste, that is just the beginning. So this is a really quick and easy recipe. It's great for a side dish or even a main dish. You can always serve maybe a grilled chicken breast on the side, or even get creative and decide to mix that in if you are feeling adventurous. And then we'll just add our last few tomatoes. And then we have the other half of our mozzarella cheese. This is another cup of mozzarella cheese if you're doing the whole recipe. And we will just sprinkle this over the top of our skillet. So we want to spread that cheese evenly to get that nice crunchy brown coating on the top. And our bake is ready. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off on my skillet. This is ready to put in our oven at 350 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. Keep an eye on it. Whenever that cheese looks brown and toasty, you know that you're good to go. So if this segment has inspired you to make this recipe, you can get it a few different ways. You can email barry.hyatt@nctc.com, or you can also search Plate It Up Kentucky Proud in your Google search bar, or find us on Facebook for this recipe and many others.
Hi again, everybody. Barry Hyatt here in Scottsville with Kelly, and I'm jumping on board just for a few minutes here because we wanted to wish Kelly well, because this is her last segment here on NCTV. So Kelly, what's next for you?
It is. I've actually taken a new position with a dietetics nutrition consulting company called Nutrition Plus.
And what will you be doing with this new job?
Yes, I will be managing the patient's nutrition care at several long-term care facilities. So I'll kind of have a territory, and I'll be visiting each of them weekly.
Will you be staying in this area?
I will, yes. I'll still be in the area. I love it here, so I'll be here, but just doing something new.
Well, fantastic. Well, we wish you all the best, of course, and thank you all for all your help over the last 2.5 years. I think it's been since you've been doing this.
I think that's about right.
And we appreciate all your hard work. We really
Well,
do.
I've enjoyed it, Barry. This has been one of the most fun things to do. So.
And we loved having her for sure. Well, guys, just one more update we want to pass along as well. We will continue to have the recipe segment monthly here on NCTV. Stay tuned for that information. We'll let you know as soon as we find out more, okay? Take care, guys, and have a great rest of your day.